So for section 3.4, we're going to be focusing on what's called the slope intercept form. I add a little thing to this because, yes, we know we've seen mx plus b, and we know the m is the slope, or our change in y over change in x. Okay, so they call it slope intercept form because one thing it contains is the slope, but it also contains an intercept. What I find that if people mess with this and have an issue with this the most, it's this b is not just an intercept, it's the y-intercept. So it's called slope intercept because it has a slope and an intercept, but you need to remember that it's the slope y-intercept. So we call it slope intercept, but that b is the y-intercept. Remember, the argument is if x were to be 0, if x equaled 0, and I was to plug a 0 in here, all I'd be left with is that y equals b. So that would be a point, 0, comma, b. That number, that b, will always be the y-intercept. The m will be our slope. So here's how we're going to graph these. And I'm going to show you kind of the process. We need to identify the slope, the y-intercept, and then graph. So let's see. Here's 4x plus 1. Okay? You need to have in your notes, you should have seen this before now, this is basically in mx plus b form. So when we graph, we start with the y-intercept. I need to actually start at a point I know. That's the b. That would be 0, comma, b, 0, comma, 1. That's a point. I can plot the point 0, 1. Now to get to the following point, what we do is we use the slope. The slope is our m. Our m is 4. And we know that as change in y over change in x. This is currently a whole number. So what we would do is we could make that a fraction by making that 4 over 1. Change in y over change in x. So basically from the point 0, 1, we could rise 4 up and over 1. I could go up 1, 2, 3, 4 and over 1, and I could find another point to draw my line. If I really wanted another point, I could go from there up another 1, 2, 3, 4 and over another 1, and this would continue to make a straight line. Now, one thing to keep track of is sometimes going up and right is not always helpful, kind of go off the graph. So I could actually go backwards. Up 4 over 1 is the same thing as down 4, back 1. A negative divided by a negative is still a positive slope. So instead of going up and right, I could also go down 4, left 1, down 4, left 1, down 1, 2, 3, 4, and left 1. So we can go up and right, or we can go down and left and get the same slope. And once we have these points, we graph our line by connecting the dots. Make sure you have an arrow on each side. So that's the process. It's really not that complicated, but I want to show you real quick because we've been doing this already. We graphed by plotting a table. And I said, pick numbers that the denominator goes into. Well, this had a denominator of 1. So I would just plug in -1, 0, and 1. Okay? If I plug in the 0, we already know what happens. 4 times 0, 0 plus 1. Y equals 1. That's the point 0, 1. We have that right there. That is our y-intercept. That's the first point we knew from mx plus b. But notice what happens when I plug in a 4. If I plug in a 1, 4 times 1 is 4. 4 plus 1, y equals 5. If I plug in a -1, 4 times -1, -4 plus 1 is -3. All of these points right here are currently on my graph. 0, 1, 1, 5, -1, -3. So when we have the equation in slope-intercept form, rather than make the table, we literally can make the table directly on the graph. By what? Starting at the y-intercept, and then looking at the slope, and from the y-intercept, going up 4 on the y, and up 1 on the x. 4 over 1. Or going back 4 on the y, and back 1 on the x. So we've already been making slopes. We've already seen the change in y over change in x. What this mx plus b does is it lets me, rather than make the table, I can make those 3 points, I can make the table directly on the graph. So for example 2, I'm going to go through this the quick way. What is the y-intercept? Well, mx plus b. The b is that negative 8 at the end. Don't put an x-intercept at negative 8. It's the y-intercept. So literally that point is 0, negative 8. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay? Now from there, from the y-intercept, we're going to use the slope. What's our m here? Well, negative x. What's the number with the x? If there is no number, that's like a negative 1. So it's really what? Negative 1 over 1. That's our rise over run. That's our slope. So the change in y is negative 1. We will go 1 down. And the positive 1 is 1 to the right. Okay? So from the y-intercept, I will go down 1 and right 1. Down 1 and right 1. But see, this is going to start falling off our graph. This is kind of not terribly helpful. And this is where I encourage you to think about, know how to go backwards. Instead of going down and right, I could go up, positive 1, left, negative 1. Is that still a negative slope? A negative divided by a positive is negative. A positive divided by a negative is still negative. So if I go up and left, I can continue this line both to the right and to the left. Okay? Y equals negative 2/3 x. First step. What is our b? Well, it's mx plus b. What's right here? There is nothing, right? That doesn't mean it's a 1. Our b this time is nothing. We have no number there, right? Does that mean we have no y-intercept? No. It means b comma 0 just becomes 0, 0. There's our y-intercept. If I stick a 0 in for x, negative 2/3 times 0, y equals 0. Okay? Second, I use the slope. What is slope? Rise over run. So our m is negative 2 over 3. The rise is negative 2, means it goes 2 down and 3 to the positive right. 2 down and 1, 2, 3 to the right. 2 down and 1, 2, 3 to the right. Continues a straight line. Or I could go positive 2 over negative 3. That would be up 2 and left 3. And that still fits along our straight line. Let's keep going. What if they give me the equation 3x minus 4y equals 8? Well, in the past, we'd say, well, just find the x-intercepts and the y-intercepts. Okay. So if I did the x-intercept is where y would equal 0. I would get 3x minus 4 times 0. 3x equals 8. X equals 8/3. Let's graph the x-intercept at 2 and 2/3. No thank you, right? Now the y-intercept would be nice, but see, the idea is that the intercepts don't always work very well. Okay? So this is not fun. I do not want to graph 8/3, 0. Okay? So the other option is, let's put this in mx plus b form. Let's take this 3x minus 4y and solve it for y. Take the 3x minus 4y equals 8, and we are solving for y. We did this on our last test, so you should already be somewhat comfortable with this. Y is being multiplied and added by 3, so the inverse, we start by subtracting. What's left on the left side? Now on the right side, do not write that as 8 minus 3x. Not that it's mathematically wrong, but remember I want mx plus b. So we're actually going to write the x first plus the 8. Keep it in that mx plus b. Last step, to deal with the multiplying by negative 4, we would divide by negative 4. If I do it to one side, do it to, remember I recommended you could divide the whole thing by -4, but what's going to be a better deal for this is to divide each term by the -4. Because everything gets divided by that -4. So what's left on the left side is y, now positive, is equal to, and negative divided by negative is positive 3/4 x, and positive 8 divided by -4 should be -2. Now we graph from this. Okay, from y equals mx plus b, we start with b. The b is, that's a point, 0, -2. Notice that is on the y-axis, since it is the y-intercept. From there, we use the slope, 3/4, that is rise 3, positive, run 4, positive, up 3, 1, 2, 3, and over 1, 2, 3, 4. And that should be enough. If you wanted more, I could go up another 1, 2, 3, right another 1, 2, 3, 4, and that should still be on our line. Or down 1, 2, 3, and back 1, 2, 3, 4, and that should still be on our line. Okay? Last one. Alright, so if we look at this, I'm going to graph this, not in the form it is. I want to solve for y. So how are we going to do that? Add the 2x over. So now 3y is equal to, put it in mx plus b, 2x minus 3. To undo the multiplying, we divide by 3. Divide what by 3? Each term gets divided by 3. So now I have y equals 2/3 x minus 1. How would I graph that? Start at the y-intercept at -1. And from there, use the slope of 2/3. That would be up 2 over 1, 2, 3. And graph a line. So double check. This needs to be easy. Okay. Yes, I can make a table. Yes, you need to know the skill of making a table. That's still an important skill. But we need to be able to graph these quickly and accurately. We need to be able to make the table directly on the graph.